Now, I do have an answer for this question myself, so here's my video response to me. What I see as being the outcome of this situation is this. The players have an in-character understanding of what's going on, but they also have this meta understanding of what's going on based on story styles and story events that I have put in motion in the past. And both of these players originally played with me as fellow players in another Game Master's Shadowrun game, which was laden with conspiracy, and I was playing a very secretive character in that game. And then came into one of my very early vampire campaigns when Vampire the Masquerade was still very new, and then moved into Werewolf with me when it was first published. So they have a lot of experience with me telling a lot of very twisted and convoluted stories with a lot of intrigue going on in the background. From a meta point of view, they expect me to present situations which do not appear as they really are. Plus, they expect the ground to be pulled out from under them often. So if they don't keep their eye on all the facts that are important to them right now, they'll lose the opportunity. They have this meta sense that they need to act decisively now or lose the opportunity. And that's interesting. It certainly keeps things intriguing. The characters don't have the sense that this force behind their universe is me, with my history. They're just tracking down this vessel. So, if I take this suggestion from the players and modify the events in motion to match that, what am I really doing? Well, let's say that in my initial conception of this event, there is no other ship, there is no intrigue, everything is as it seems. We have an active piracy, the escaping vessel is quite stealthy, and it's not until all of the forces are arranged in the appropriate pattern for a proper sensor sweep that it's detected and pursuit can begin. Let's say that's truth. There's no other escaping vessel. So the heroism of the scene comes from the willingness to sacrifice themselves. Not saying, no, I'm sorry, we don't have the fuel for that pursuit, please dispatch other vessels. Or laying their lives on the line and going for it in the hope that they can be rescued and retrieved later. So this is a story of pure military action and simple heroism. The day-to-day sort of heroism that soldiers are called upon to deliver for the rest of us. If I shift it so that there is incompetence on the side of the military force, the fleet to which they're attached, so that the only people that can detect or discover or think of this alternate conspiracy, or this two ships escaping, one as a decoy, then I change the tone of the entire campaign. And what was heroism now becomes a level of heroism more like an action movie, where the best oil rig driller in the world saves the planet. That kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of story, but if we're starting out going in one direction and completely shift to go in another direction, where we can't trust the abilities, or we can't trust that the authorities are telling us the whole thing, they're just moving us like pawns. If we move from that purity of story to this convoluted dark story, because right now it seems cooler, I think that we'll never really be telling the stories we set out to tell. And we won't discover anything. We'll discover our desires, but our desires are often the same. We want what we want, and everybody wants their character to be cool. So that's nothing new. But the kind of role-playing that comes out in a situation where you're not just going in the heat of the moment, where plans are carried through and people need to react to them, and I react to your reaction, and they react to that reaction, and it goes on and ripples. This leads us to things that we couldn't possibly plan, that come from places that are more tied to who the characters and NPCs are as manifestations of real people than that connection to what I happen to want tonight. As the title of my original post kind of implies, I feel that there can be a trap in following your narrative impulses and flying by the seat of your pants. Now, those who've watched my earlier clips know that I'm a strong proponent of everybody at the table being surprised by the story as it emerges. But I don't think that we should just wing it. But what's the difference? I actually think that there are 3 or more different ways to approach running a story at a table. One, of course, is the classic, getting on the railroad. But the other, flying by the seat of your pants, I think leads us into dangerous ground. And with my background running games from a, to use a word, simulationist style, I feel that there's a difference between flying by the seat of your pants and being true to the story. And what I mean by being true to the story is that that which happens makes real sense in the long term and short term. That what characters do or which events follow which events make sense according to what they are. And the reason why I feel this is that if we don't do this, many opportunities can be lost. Not because you'll come up with stupid things flying by the seat of your pants, although that sometimes happens, but because you lose control over the overall tone and theme of your story. And by your, I mean the whole group. What you're striving toward is greater than your knee-jerk reaction right now. And all of that can be lost because of one really cool idea, or one very clever idea, or one very surprising idea. It doesn't always have to be chasing the awesome that takes your campaign in directions that it cannot recover from. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way. This is very narrowly defined stuff. But what can be lost can truly be incredible. One example of this I recorded on my blog last year during one of the RPG blog carnivals. And the topic was heroism for the carnival. And the title of my blog post was, "We Could Be Heroes." And I told the story of an old Call of Cthulhu campaign that I ran, and it was a long-term campaign. And one character, among many, rose up to incredible levels of heroism. And this could not have happened had I been railroading, or had I been just going along with what the players needed or thought was happening at the time. I could have had some incredibly exciting sessions if I had given into my narrative impulses, but I would not have had this incredibly special experience of a small German woman fighting unstoppable forces, losing family, friends, an arm, an eye, and finally the use of her legs, and ultimately sacrificing herself for the safety of her companions. None of this could have happened had I given in to my instincts as a storyteller, rather than my instincts as an interpreter of what is happening. So here's this thing. Am I saying don't do it? Don't fly by the seat of your pants? No. At this point, obviously, I'm not. But I am, I guess, more than slightly implying that there's an evolution. When we begin as game masters, I think that the tendency toward railroading is that we're so focused on learning how to apply the rules that the story takes on a very scripted nature, and that's one style of play, following through on a scripted story, which can be a very effective style, but it's also a part of the learning process, moving through a script, knowing all the rules, and making sure the session runs smoothly. And from that, we graduate to other things, such as flying by the seat of your pants, being able to wing it, being able to create things on the fly, all while still retaining our mastery of the rules. But I think there can be a desire, or I think people can stop there, when the next evolution would be to combine the two, to maintain a clear focus on NPC motivations and the objective truth of the story as it's unfolding, as it's emerging, rather than allowing yourself to change it, to change what was a fact yesterday into a lie today for the sake of what might seem right now in the heat of the moment to be a better direction. It may be a better direction. You may be turning your back on something that would have been much cooler, but not sacrificing the truth of what your characters have accomplished, I feel, is more important.